Hello everybody, welcome to our TamperDetect demo video. Today I'm going to be walking you through getting your TamperDetect account set up and getting your first page up and running. The first thing we need to do is set up the page we want to be scanned. Now there are two ways to accomplish this. The simple page setup lets you create scaffolding for your scanned page but without running the initial snapshot. The advanced page setup is to help handle different scenarios. So let's cover all these steps one by one. If you use the simple page setup, all you need to do is provide the URL of the page that you want scanned and give it a title. This will create the scaffolding for your page without running the initial snapshot scan. If you go this route, you will need to go in and actually run the initial snapshot here. Let's take a look at the advanced page setup now. So this will be the title of your scanned page. If your scanned page requires a login or a certain flow in order to arrive at your page, then you will need to use the gated content feature. Refer to the help section here for additional details. If you do choose this option, there is some more work that needs to be done. So make sure to watch this other video for a full explanation. Keep in mind this process can always be completed later if you wish. If your scanned page does not have any gated content, then you will simply need to provide the direct URL to the page you want to be scanned. Note that we offer a free service that monitors important input elements, such as credit card numbers, CVV fields, etc. On each scan, all the page content is searched for any code that is targeting those input elements. If anything is found, you will see those results on your page's dashboard. Keep in mind that if a match is found, it doesn't necessarily mean the code is malicious. We simply want you to be aware of the code that is targeting that input element so that you can ensure that you are not part of a skimming or other attack. If we choose to use this feature, TamperDetect is going to use some AI to find your important credit card information input elements for you. Once this process completes, you can then remove any input elements that you might not want to keep an eye on. Keep in mind that you can always do this process later on if you wish. You can also manually add any input elements that may not have turned up here. Next, we need to tell TamperDetect what category items we want to monitor. For this demo, we are going to choose everything. The next thing we need to do is enable what alert types we want. We currently offer email and text alerts, and coming very soon webhooks as well. So all you need to do is provide the emails and phone numbers that you want alerts to be sent to. The alert priority level makes it possible to assign a priority to each item in your scan. That way you can make it so that you only get alerts for a certain priority and above. If you select yes for autocomplete onboarding, this will run the initial scan snapshot for your page, as well as running an additional comparison scan to help show any scanned items that might have dynamically loaded content that will change on each request, causing future scans to fail, since the content is always going to be different from the initial snapshot scan. Now you can always do this same process manually by clicking on the Run Integrity Scan button on your page's dashboard. However, by choosing to use the autocomplete onboarding, TamperDetect will also use additional logic to help find potentially problematic scan files that can be easily fixed, saving you time from having to do so. For example, sometimes a scan file will always fail future scans, only because its file modified date changes on each request. The autocomplete onboarding feature will find and mute these automatically. Keep in mind, this process takes some time, so please be patient and allow it to complete. So now we're going to jump ahead and take a look at the initial snapshot. To keep this simple, we are going to set up our scan without using any of the additional features. And now that the snapshot has completed, we can now see all the individual files that make up this page. We've broken these files down by category to make it a little easier to read. The first thing that I want to cover is the monitored input fields. This is what I showed you previously, where we selected the credit card information input fields. We can see that this is already in red, which means it's found a problem, so let's go ahead and take a look at that to see what this means. So it looks like our field ID of card number has found a problem where there is JavaScript that is apparently targeting that input field. Now keep in mind, it's not always malicious. There are many cases where JavaScript may be targeting an input field like this, but it's usually tied more to ad campaigns and other third-party marketing efforts. But again, we do this because we want to call out anything and everything that might be trying to manipulate your page to do something malicious. So in this case, if we look at the matches that have been found, it's going to show us that there's some inline JavaScript on this page that's targeting this particular input field. If we look at the usage in the code, we can actually see what it is and what it's doing. So card number again is the actual ID of that input field, and this is the JavaScript that is targeting it. In this case, of course, for this example, I made it pretty obvious that it's something that is malicious and needs to be addressed. But again, just want to show you how this works and how TamperDetect goes outside of just the bare minimum PCI compliance to really make sure that your page really is being monitored for anything that is malicious. Now let's take a look inside one of these. So here you're going to see all of the externally referenced JavaScript files that are on this page. Most pages are going to have quite a few, and we're not going to take a deep dive inside of this right now. I just want to briefly show you what this kind of looks like and what happens when there's a problem detected. So we've taken our initial snapshot. However, we have not run an actual scan yet. We need to run a scan right after the snapshot because that scan is going to tell some very important things. Most pages use a lot of third-party files that have dynamically changing data. And what I mean by that is files that may load an ID or sections that change on each request. So every time you load this page along with that content, technically it changes on each request. So the first thing that we need to do is account for any files or content that may be dynamically changing on each request. So we're going to go ahead and run our first scan. Now after the scan has completed, you're going to notice we have some more red on our page. So let's take a look at the JavaScript here. Now we're going to see here that there's a file that TamperDetect is telling us has changed. If we take a look at the red exclamation point down here by usage, it's going to show us the difference it detected. So this is what I was telling you about earlier, where this particular file has an ID that changes on each request. And that's why TamperDetect is alerting us, telling us that, hey, this content has changed. Now in this case, I know exactly what this file is, and I know that it's completely benign. So best case scenario, all we have to do is simply say, we don't want to track this. Now it's going to keep it in here for historical and reporting purposes, but it will be omitted from the scan, so it won't trigger any false alarms. But now let's take a look at a scenario where something has changed that wasn't supposed to change. I have a JavaScript file here called site.js, and right now if we look at the code behind it, it's just a simple little code snippet. Now let's say somebody gets access to your web server or to this JavaScript file and they're able to manipulate it. So we're going to go ahead and open up that JavaScript file, and we're going to change this value from site1 to, let's say, site2, and save the changes. Now we're going to run our scan again and let's see what happens. Okay, our scan has completed, and now you're going to notice that that JavaScript file that we just manipulated is now in red. You can see all these changes at once by just clicking on the binocular icon, or you can see them individually by just clicking on the exclamation point here. And again, you're going to see that we originally had site1 for the value, which is now changed to site2. Now at this point, you're going to need to make a decision as to what needs to happen. Now once that threat has been resolved, we will just need to redo the snapshot so that we can once again save that page in its correct state. Now you may also ask, what if the change that occurred to this particular page was a change that you were expecting? Let's say, for example, your developer uploaded a newer version of this file or made a change to this file that was legitimate. In that case, all we need to do is replace the current item with the comparison. This will now update that item to that comparison that we just did, and you'll now notice if we take a look at it, the code behind it is now the updated site2 code. And this will persist from here on out on future scans. I also want to show you what happens when a new file is added or an existing file is taken away. So in this case, we're going to add a new JavaScript file called site2 that was previously not part of our snapshot. Now we will run the scan again and I'll show you what happens. So we just completed another scan. And once again, our JavaScript externally referenced files is in red. And of course, that is because a new file that was originally not part of the snapshot has suddenly been introduced. So here we see the site2.js file that I just added to it. And of course, again, it's a business decision as to what needs to happen. Is this file addition malicious or was it actually legitimate? In the case of legitimacy, where you need to include this file into your snapshot, either you can do a completely new snapshot to get it included, or you can just simply add it to the snapshot this way. And this way you'll notice that that site2 JavaScript file is now included and will be part of the scans from here on out. Now, one other thing that I do want to mention is that everything we're doing right now is the manual onboarding process. Once everything is configured and set up, we have a service that runs in the background that will automatically be doing these scans. The frequency of those scans depends upon what you're looking for. We offer anything from once a week to once an hour. Before we end the demo, there's just a few other things I want to run over real quickly. One of them is for the 6.4.3 PCI compliance, which requires that each file that is included in your page has been reviewed and justified as being necessary to be loaded into your page. The way we handle this requirement is you'll notice there's a little handshake icon up here. All you have to do is click on this and provide the following information. Once this information is provided, all you have to do is export your compliance report, and it will have all the information that you need to hand over to your assessor. So now that we've scratched the surface of how TamperDetect works, this hopefully gives you a better idea on what exactly it is that we do and how we help you reach the compliance that you need. There is, of course, a lot more that TamperDetect can do. We're going to cover more of those items in greater detail in a different demo. But for now, thank you so much for your time, and as usual, if you have any questions, please reach out to us.